Sarah Mitchell sat on the worn linoleum floor of her kitchen in Bakersfield, California, her back pressed against the cold cabinet. The afternoon sun filtered through the broken blinds, casting prison bar shadows across the room. Her 7-year-old daughter Emma was at school, and for the first time that day, Sarah allowed herself to cry. The eviction notice lay crumpled on the counter. 30 days. She had 30 days to come up with $2,000 or they would be on the street. Her hands trembled as she picked up her phone, staring at the screen through blurred vision. The battery icon blinked red at 5%, much like her hope. Sarah had never been one to complain publicly. Growing up in rural Texas, she had learned to keep her struggles private, to smile through the pain, to never let anyone see you sweat. But tonight, something inside her broke. She opened Facebook and started typing. I can't take it anymore. I really can't. I'm sitting here on my kitchen floor and I don't know what to do. My daughter deserves so much better than this. She deserves a mom who can afford to keep the lights on, who can buy her new shoes when the old ones have holes, who doesn't have to choose between rent and food. I've worked 3 jobs and it's still not enough. The daycare won't take Emma anymore because I'm behind on payments. My car is making a noise that sounds like it's about to die. I got fired from the diner last week because I had to leave early when Emma got sick at school. I'm so tired. I'm so scared. I don't know how much longer I can do this alone. I'm sorry for venting. I just needed to tell someone. Anyone. She hit post before she could second-guess herself, then set the phone down and buried her face in her hands. The apartment was silent except for the drip of the leaky faucet she couldn't afford to fix. Sarah didn't know that across town. A man named Marcus Bear Thompson was scrolling through his phone at the Iron Brotherhood Clubhouse. Bear was the president of the Bakersfield chapter of the Hells Angels, a massive man with a gray beard down to his chest and arms covered in tattoos that told stories of 40 years on the road. He was sitting in his usual spot, a leather armchair that had molded to his shape over the years, when Sarah's post appeared in his feed. Bear didn't know Sarah personally. They had one mutual friend, a woman named Rita who worked at the elementary school Emma attended. But something about Sarah's words stopped him mid-scroll. He read it twice, then a third time. He had a daughter once, past tense. 16 years ago, his little girl Katie had died in a car accident while he was out on a ride. Unreachable. His ex-wife had tried calling him 17 times that day. He hadn't answered until it was too late. Bear stood up, his leather vest creaking. The clubhouse fell silent as 29 other members looked up from their beers and pool games. When Bear moved with purpose, everyone paid attention. Listen up, he said, his voice gravelly from decades of cigarettes and whiskey. His presence commanded the room without effort. I got something here that needs our attention. He read Sarah's post aloud. The room remained quiet as the words hung in the air. These were men whose society often judged by their patches and their motorcycles, by the leather and the chains and the reputation that preceded them. But Bear knew something the outside world didn't always see. Beneath the tough exterior, many of these men had their own stories of loss, of struggle, of watching their families suffer. Tommy Wrench Rodriguez spoke first. He was the youngest member, only 24, with kind eyes that contradicted his intimidating appearance. My mom raised me alone after my dad split. I remember nights like that, sitting in the dark because the power got shut off. I remember. Old man Jim, who had been riding with the club for 30 years, nodded slowly. His weathered face bore the map of a hard life. What are you thinking, Bear? Bear pulled up Sarah's profile. She had a few public photos. One showed her and Emma at a park, both smiling despite the obvious wear in their clothes. Emma had blonde pigtails and was missing her 2 front teeth. Sarah looked exhausted but was trying to hide it behind her smile for the camera. She lives over on Miller Street. That's what, 10 minutes from here? Bear looked around the room. I'm thinking we take a ride tomorrow. See what we can do. Diesel, the club's treasurer, stood up. He was the accountant by day, a biker by night, a combination that often surprised people. I got savings. We could put together some cash. Help with that rent she mentioned. Snake, who ran a auto repair shop, added his voice to the growing chorus. That car problem she mentioned. I can fix that. Won't charge her nothing. Bear felt something shift in his chest. This was why he loved this club. These men, for all their rough edges, had hearts that showed up when it mattered. All right then. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., we ride to Miller Street, and we bring solutions, not just sympathy. The next morning, Sarah woke up to her phone buzzing. She had fallen asleep on the couch, still in yesterday's clothes. Her first thought was panic, thinking she had overslept and missed getting Emma to school. But it was Saturday. She grabbed her phone, now charged, and her heart sank. Her post had blown up overnight. 200 comments. 300. The number kept climbing as she watched. But as she started reading, her stomach twisted. Some comments were supportive, offering prayers and kind words. But others were cruel, in a way that took her breath away. Maybe if you had made better choices, you wouldn't be in this mess. Get a real job instead of begging on Facebook. I bet she spends all her money on cigarettes and tattoos. These single mothers always have excuses. Your daughter should be taken away if you can't even provide basics. Call CPS on yourself. Stop having kids you can't afford. Personal responsibility much? Sarah felt her face burn with shame. She had been vulnerable for one moment. One single moment of weakness, and the internet had turned it into an opportunity to judge and attack. Her fingers shook as she deleted the post, but the damage was done. The comments were already screenshot and shared. She could see them spreading in real time. Emma emerged from her bedroom, rubbing her eyes. She wore pajamas that were too small, the sleeves stopping above her wrists. "Mommy, I'm hungry." Sarah wiped her eyes quickly and stood up, forcing a smile. "Of course, baby. Let's see what we can make for breakfast." The refrigerator offered few options. A carton of eggs with 3 left. Half a loaf of bread. Some jelly. She could make that work. She always made it work somehow. As she scrambled the eggs in the pan that had lost its non-stick coating years ago, Sarah tried to push away the comments echoing in her head. She had made a mistake posting that. She should have kept it inside like always. Now the whole world knew she was failing. What Sarah didn't know was that at that exact moment, 30 motorcycles were rumbling to life across town. The sound echoed through the quiet Saturday morning streets of Bakersfield like thunder rolling in from the desert. Bear led the pack, his 1984 Harley-Davidson Softail gleaming despite its age. Behind him, the Iron Brotherhood fell into formation, a river of chrome and leather flowing through the California streets. They rode past strip malls and fast food restaurants, past the good side of town and toward the neighborhood where rent was cheap because hope was cheaper. Miller Street was a collection of apartment buildings that had seen better days, probably back in the 70s when they were first built. Now the paint peeled, the parking lots were cracked, and every unit told a story of people hanging on by their fingernails. Bear pulled up to Building 14, Unit 6, Sarah's address. He killed the engine and the others followed suit. The sudden silence was almost as loud as the bikes had been. 30 men dismounted, their boots hitting the pavement in a symphony of purpose. Bear approached the door, his heart doing something it hadn't done in years. It was beating fast, nervous. He thought of Katie. He thought of all the times he hadn't been there. Maybe this was his chance to be there for someone else's daughter. He knocked. 3 firm raps that echoed inside the small apartment. Sarah froze at the kitchen sink, a soapy plate in her hand. Emma looked up from her coloring book at the table. "Mommy, someone's at the door." "Stay here, baby," Sarah said quietly. Her mind raced. Was it the landlord? Had he decided not to wait 30 days? Her heart pounded as she approached the door, drying her hands on a dish towel. She opened it, and her world tilted. 30 men stood in her parking lot. 30 Hells Angels in full patches and leather. Their motorcycles formed a semicircle behind them. The morning sun glinted off chrome and metal. For a moment, Sarah couldn't breathe. Bear removed his sunglasses. His gray eyes were gentle despite his intimidating appearance. "Sarah Mitchell?" Sarah's voice came out as barely a whisper. "Yes." "Who are you?" Bear extended a hand that was the size of a dinner plate, scarred and calloused from decades of working on engines. "My name is Marcus Thompson. Everyone calls me Bear. We're from the Iron Brotherhood. We saw your post last night." Sarah's face went white. Oh God. The post. The one she had deleted in shame just hours ago. Her mind spun with panic. Had these men come to judge her too? To tell her what a failure she was? To threaten her for airing her problems publicly? She took a step back, her hand gripping the doorframe. "I deleted it. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have posted it. I was just having a bad moment. I'm fine. We're fine." Bear saw the fear in her eyes and it gutted him. He held up both hands in a peaceful gesture. Ma'am, we're not here to cause any trouble. We're here to help. Can we talk for just a minute? Sarah looked past Bear at the 29 other men standing in her parking lot. Neighbors were emerging from their apartments, phones out, recording. Mrs. Chen from upstairs had her hand over her mouth. The teenage boys who usually hung out by the dumpsters had scattered. This was a nightmare. This was making everything worse. Now everyone would really know how pathetic she was. The single mom who was so desperate that a biker gang showed up at her house. I appreciate whatever this is, but I can't, Sarah said, starting to close the door. Please just go. Mommy? Emma's small voice came from behind her. She had wandered over despite being told to stay at the table. Her blue eyes went wide as she saw the men. Wow. Motorcycles. Bear's expression softened completely when he saw Emma. The little girl with blonde hair and curious eyes, wearing pajamas that didn't fit, holding a worn, stuffed rabbit. She looked exactly like Katie had at that age. Hey there, young lady, Bear said gently. What's your name? Emma, the girl said, then looked up at her mother. Mommy, why are there so many motorcycles? Sarah put her hand on Emma's shoulder, torn between protecting her daughter and not wanting to seem rude. Baby, go back inside, please. Wrench stepped forward, pulling something from his vest pocket. He had stopped at a convenience store on the way and bought it with his own money. He held out a small stuffed animal, a bear with a little leather vest. For you, he said to Emma, if your mom says it's okay. Emma's face lit up, but she looked at Sarah for permission. Sarah felt tears threatening again. These men, these intimidating leather-clad men on motorcycles, had brought her daughter a toy. Nothing about this made sense. Bear spoke again, his voice low and sincere. Sarah, I know this looks crazy. I know we're probably the last people you expected to see this morning, but we're not here to make things harder. We read what you wrote. And every single man standing behind me has either been where you are or loved someone who was. We want to help. That's it. No strings, no judgment. Just help. Sarah's defenses cracked. She had been holding herself together for so long, being strong for Emma, never letting anyone see how close to the edge she really was. But something in Bear's eyes, something genuine and kind, made her walls crumble. Her voice broke. I can't pay you back, we don't want you to, Diesel said, stepping up beside Bear. He pulled out an envelope from his jacket. Inside was $2,500 in cash, collected from the club members that morning. This is for your rent, and whatever else you need. Sarah stared at the envelope like it was a mirage. Her hands trembled as she took it, feeling the weight of it. Real money. Enough to keep the roof over their heads. Enough to buy Emma those shoes she needed. Enough to breathe for the first time in months. I don't understand, she whispered. Why would you do this for strangers because nobody should have to sit on their kitchen floor feeling that alone? Bear said simply. Because we can. And because that little girl right there deserves to see her mama smile. The tears came then, hot and fast, rolling down Sarah's cheeks. She tried to wipe them away, but they kept coming. Emma hugged her leg, confused, but sensing her mother's emotion. Thank you, Sarah managed to say. Thank you so much. But the help didn't stop there. Snake stepped forward with his business card. Your car. Bring it by my shop on Monday. I'll fix whatever's wrong. No charge. Consider it done. A woman named Raven, one of 3 female members in the club, handed Sarah a bag. Inside were groceries, real groceries, fresh fruit, vegetables, milk, bread, chicken, pasta, things Sarah hadn't been able to afford in weeks. For your kitchen, Raven said. And there's more where that came from. You just call me if you need anything. Her number was written on a piece of paper tucked inside. Sarah's legs felt weak. She leaned against the doorframe, overwhelmed. This doesn't feel real, it's real, Bear assured her. And there's one more thing. He gestured to the parking lot where 3 men were unloading something from a pickup truck that had followed the motorcycles. It was a bike, a small pink bicycle with training wheels and a basket. Emma's eyes went huge. I heard every 7-year-old needs a bike, Bear said, looking down at Emma. What do you think? You like it? Emma looked at Sarah with such hope it broke and mended her heart simultaneously. "Mommy, can I?" "Really?" Sarah couldn't speak. She just nodded, crying harder now. Emma shrieked with joy and ran toward the bike. Wrench and 2 others helped her onto it, showing her how the brakes worked, steadying her as she found her balance. The parking lot had filled with neighbors now. Some were filming, some were just staring in disbelief. Sarah could already imagine what they were thinking, what they would say. But for the first time, she didn't care. Bear pulled out his own phone. "Sarah, I need to tell you something else. Your post last night, it didn't just reach us, it spread. People screenshot it before you deleted it. And I'm not gonna lie to you, some of the comments were cruel. Really cruel." Sarah's stomach dropped. "I know. I saw them this morning. That's why I deleted it. Well, those comments pissed off a lot of people. Good people." Bear showed her his phone. There was a GoFundMe page that had been set up by Rita, their mutual friend from the elementary school. It had been live for only 6 hours and had already raised $8,000. Sarah's knees actually buckled. Bear caught her arm, steadying her. "Easy there. $8,000? Sarah couldn't process it. "That's not possible." "It's possible," Bear said. "And it's yours. Rita called me this morning. She's the one who told me where you lived. She wanted us to check on you, make sure you were safe after seeing those comments. We decided to do more than check." Sarah looked at Emma, laughing as she rode her new bike in wobbly circles while 3 massive bikers jogged alongside her, making sure she didn't fall. She looked at the envelope of cash in her hand, at the groceries, at these 30 strangers who had shown up when the world had tried to tear her down. But then her phone buzzed, and buzzed again, and again. She looked at the screen, and her brief moment of joy evaporated. The videos were already online. Neighbors had posted them to Facebook, to TikTok, to Instagram. The titles made her sick. Hell's Angels show up at single mom's house. Why did bikers surround this woman's apartment? What did she do to get the Hells Angels involved? And the comments beneath the videos were already starting. She probably owes them drug money. This is so staged. Nobody is that nice. What's the real story? CPS needs to investigate. Why are gang members around a child? I bet she's sleeping with one of them. That's the only reason men help women. This is some kind of publicity stunt. These bikers are probably actors. Sarah felt the shame creeping back in, hot and suffocating. Even when people tried to help her, even when something good happened, the world found a way to twist it into something ugly. She wanted to crawl into a hole and disappear. Bear noticed her expression change. "What's wrong?" Sarah showed him the phone with shaking hands. "They're saying terrible things. They think this is fake or that I did something bad to deserve your help. They're saying you're gang members and that Emma isn't safe. This is going to make everything worse." Bear's jaw clenched as he read the comments. The other club members crowded around, their faces darkening as they saw the cruel speculation and accusations. These people didn't know them. Didn't know that Snake volunteered at a youth center teaching kids how to fix bikes. Didn't know that Diesel donated thousands every year to foster care programs. Didn't know that Bear himself sponsored 3 families every Christmas anonymously. The judgment was instant and harsh. Because they wore patches. Because they rode motorcycles. Because they didn't fit society's image of what helpers were supposed to look like. Wrench punched his palm. "This is bullshit. We try to do something good and people turn it into garbage." Sarah's voice was small. "Maybe you should go. I don't want you guys to get in trouble because of me. I don't want Emma to be hurt by what people are saying." Bear looked at her for a long moment. Then he looked at Emma, still riding her bike with pure joy on her face. He thought about walking away. It would be easier. They had done their good deed. They could leave and let the internet say whatever it wanted. But then he remembered Katie. He remembered all the times he had walked away when things got complicated. All the times he had chosen the easy path instead of the right one. "Not a chance," Bear said firmly. "We're not going anywhere." Bear turned to face his club members, his voice carrying across the parking lot. "Listen up. I know what some of you are thinking. We did our good deed, the internet is being the internet. Time to ride out and let it blow over. But that's not who we are. We don't run when things get uncomfortable." Old Man Jim nodded slowly. "Damn right we don't." Bear continued, his conviction growing stronger. These keyboard warriors hiding behind their screens, they don't know us. They don't know Sarah. They see patches and leather and they make assumptions. Well, I say we show them exactly who we are. We don't just drop off some cash and disappear. We actually help this family. Sarah wiped her eyes, confused. What do you mean? Bear looked at her directly. You said you lost your job at the diner last week. You need work. Raven, your bar is hiring, right? Raven stepped forward, a woman in her 40s with purple streaks in her dark hair and kind eyes behind her tough exterior. Yeah, we need a day shift server. Pays $15 an hour plus tips. And we have a back room where Emma could do homework after school until your shift ends. It's not fancy, but it's safe and there's always food. Sarah's mouth opened, but no words came out. A job, a real job with childcare. It seemed too good to be true. And that daycare situation, Diesel added, pulling out his phone. My sister runs a home daycare 3 blocks from the elementary school. She's got space and she owes me a favor. She'll take Emma and we can work out a payment plan you can actually afford. No more getting kicked out because you're behind. Snake chimed in. And I meant what I said about your car. But more than that, I can teach you basic maintenance. Oil changes, tire rotation, checking fluids. So you're not at the mercy of mechanics charging you an arm and a leg for simple stuff. Sarah felt dizzy. This was too much. Too generous. There had to be a catch. Her entire life had taught her that help always came with strings attached. Mommy's boyfriends who helped with rent but expected things in return. Bosses who offered raises but made inappropriate comments. The world didn't just give without taking. Why? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Why are you doing all this? Bear crouched down so he was eye level with her. Emma had ridden her bike back over and was listening, her small hand in her mother's. Because 23 years ago, I had a daughter just like Emma. Her name was Katie, and her mother needed help. But I was too busy with club business, too proud, too stupid to see it. I missed Katie's life because I thought providing money was enough. Then one day Katie was gone. Car accident. I never got to tell her I was sorry for not being there. His voice cracked and several of the other members looked away, knowing Bear's story but still moved by hearing him tell it. I can't get my daughter back, but I can be here for someone else's daughter. That's why. Sarah's tears fell silently. Emma squeezed her hand. Wrench spoke up, his young face serious. My mom raised me in a place just like this. Same peeling paint, same broken appliances, same choosing between bills. When I was Emma's age, a neighbor saw my mom crying in the laundry room. That neighbor didn't have much, but she started watching me after school for free so my mom could work a second job. That one act of kindness changed our trajectory. We got out. My mom owns her own house now. I fix bikes for a living and I'm happy. All because someone cared when they didn't have to. One by one, the members shared their stories. Diesel's parents had lost everything in a house fire when he was 12. The local community had rallied, giving them clothes, furniture, hope. Old man Jim had been homeless in his 20s, living under a bridge until a stranger gave him a job at a warehouse. That stranger had also been a Hell's Angel. These weren't scary gang members. They were human beings who had suffered and survived and remembered what it felt like to be broken. If you're watching this story and you believe that kindness still matters, that we should show up for each other when times are hard, take a moment right now and subscribe to this channel. Sarah's journey is just beginning and the next chapter is going to surprise all of us. Sarah took a shaky breath. Okay, I'll take the job and the daycare help, and I'll learn about my car, but I need you to understand something. Her voice grew stronger. I'm not a charity case. I'm going to work hard. I'm going to pay forward everything you're doing for me. Someday when I'm stable, I'm going to help someone else the way you're helping me. Bear stood up and extended his hand. Deal. They shook on it, and the club members erupted in cheers and applause. Emma clapped too, not fully understanding but caught up in the joy. But the moment was interrupted by a black SUV pulling into the parking lot. 2 women in business suits stepped out, along with a police officer. Sarah's heart stopped. Sarah Mitchell? One of the women called out, approaching with a clipboard. Yes? Sarah's voice was small again, all her fear rushing back. I'm Jennifer Costa from Child Protective Services. We received several calls this morning about a child in potential danger. Reports of gang activity at this residence. Bear's face went red. Gang activity? We're helping this family. The police officer, a younger man who looked uncomfortable with the situation, held up a hand. Sir, we have to respond to welfare checks. I'm sure this is all a misunderstanding, but we need to verify the child is safe. Emma pressed against Sarah's leg, frightened by the official-looking people. Mommy, what's happening? It's okay, baby, Sarah said, but her voice betrayed her panic. She looked at the CPS worker. My daughter is fine. These people brought us food and helped with rent. That's all. Jennifer's expression was neutral, professional. I understand. But we still need to do an assessment. Can we come inside? Sarah's apartment was small and shabby, but clean. She kept it as tidy as possible despite having nothing. But she knew how it would look to these people. The worn furniture, the patched-up couch, Emma's bedroom with its single bed and toys that were mostly hand-me-downs, the kitchen with its dated appliances and that perpetually dripping faucet. She felt humiliated all over again. The internet had judged her. Now the state was here to judge her parenting. Of course, Sarah said quietly, stepping aside. Jennifer and her colleague entered while the police officer stood outside with the club members. Bear wanted to follow, but Raven put a hand on his arm. Let her handle this. We'll just make it worse right now. Inside, Jennifer walked through the small apartment making notes. Emma followed nervously, clutching her stuffed rabbit. Sarah stood in the living room, arms wrapped around herself, feeling like a criminal. How long have you lived here? Jennifer asked. 2 years, and you're currently employed? I lost my job last week, but I have a new one starting Monday. Sarah gave them Ravensbar information. Jennifer wrote it down. And the men outside. How do you know them? I didn't until today. Sarah explained the Facebook post, the deletion, the club showing up. I know how it looks, but I promise you they just wanted to help. They haven't done anything wrong. The other CPS worker opened the refrigerator and saw it fully stocked thanks to the groceries the club had brought. She checked Emma's bedroom, noting the worn but clean clothes, the small bookshelf with library books. She looked in the bathroom at the toiletries and medicine cabinet. After 20 minutes that felt like hours, Jennifer sat down across from Sarah at the small kitchen table. Ms. Mitchell, I can see that you're doing your best with limited resources. Your home is clean. Your daughter is clearly cared for. She's healthy and appropriately dressed. But Sarah waited for the hammer to fall. But nothing. Jennifer's expression softened slightly. We received calls from people claiming you were involved with dangerous gang members and that your child was at risk. Based on what I'm seeing here, those calls were made by people who didn't have the full story. Possibly people who saw videos online and jumped to conclusions. Relief flooded through Sarah so intensely she felt lightheaded. So Emma's okay? I'm okay. You're both fine. Jennifer stood up. However, I do need to document that you have a new job starting and stable housing. I'll close this case as unfounded. But I'm going to schedule a follow-up visit in 60 days just to check in. That's standard procedure. Is that acceptable? Yes, absolutely. Sarah stood too, her legs shaky. Thank you for understanding. As they walked to the door, Jennifer paused. Off the record, Ms. Mitchell, being a single parent is the hardest job in the world. I know because I am one too. What those people did for you today, showing up like that, it's rare. Don't let the hateful comments make you doubt that there's still good in the world. Sarah nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. Outside, Jennifer approached Bear and the officer. The child is fine. The home is safe. This was a false alarm based on social media speculation. She looked at Bear directly. Whatever you're doing here, keep doing it. That woman needs support, not judgment. Bear tipped his head respectfully. Yes, ma'am. That's exactly what we intend to do. The CPS workers and the officer left. As their vehicles pulled away, the club members let out a collective exhale. That had been close. Too close. Sarah came outside, Emma still holding her hand. The little girl looked scared. I'm sorry, Sarah said to the group. I never wanted to cause you trouble. Diesel laughed, breaking the tension. Trouble? Lady, we ride motorcycles and wear patches that make people cross the street. We're used to trouble. This was nothing, but it wasn't nothing, and everyone knew it. The internet had weaponized its judgment so quickly that authorities had shown up within hours. Sarah's vulnerable moment, her cry for help, had been turned into ammunition by strangers who knew nothing about her life. Bear made a decision. He pulled out his phone and opened Facebook Live. Sarah, do you trust me? She hesitated, then nodded. At this point, yes. Then let's tell the real story. Before anyone else gets to define it for us, Bear positioned his phone against his motorcycle seat, angling it so the whole parking lot was visible. Within seconds of going live, viewers started flooding in. 100. 500? 2,000. The numbers climbed rapidly. "All right, folks," Bear began, his voice steady and authoritative. "My name is Marcus Thompson. I'm the president of the Iron Brotherhood Hells Angels Bakersfield chapter. I'm here with 29 of my brothers and sisters, and we're standing in front of Sarah Mitchell's apartment. I know many of you have seen the videos. I know what people are saying. So let me tell you what actually happened here today." Sarah stood off to the side, Emma beside her, watching nervously. The other club members formed a loose circle around Bear, their presence backing up his words. Last night, a single mother posted something honest and raw on Facebook. She said she couldn't take it anymore. She was scared, exhausted, and didn't know how she was going to keep a roof over her daughter's head. Instead of the world showing compassion, some of you decided to attack her, to mock her, to tell her she was a failure as a mother. Bear's voice grew harder. "So we showed up this morning. 30 people on motorcycles, yeah. Intimidating, sure. But you know what we brought? Rent money, groceries, a job opportunity, a bike for a 7-year-old girl who deserves to be a kid. We brought help. Real tangible help." He paused, letting that sink in. The live viewer count was now over 10,000 and climbing. And then you know what happened? People called CPS on her, called the police, accused us of being gang members endangering a child, all because we wear leather jackets and ride Harleys, all because we don't look like your idea of what good people should look like. Wrench stepped into frame. I'm 24 years old. My mom raised me alone in poverty. I remember what it felt like to be that scared kid. So when I saw a chance to help another kid not feel that way, I took it. That doesn't make me a criminal. Raven moved forward next. I own a bar. I pay my taxes. I volunteer at a women's shelter. And today I offered Sarah a job because everyone deserves a chance to support their family with dignity. Judge me for my patch if you want, but know what you're judging. One by one, members shared who they really were. Diesel, the accountant. Snake, who mentored at-risk youth through motorcycle mechanics. Old Man Jim, who had fostered 8 children over the years. These weren't the monsters the internet had painted them to be. Bear turned the camera to Sarah. "This is Sarah, tell them yourself. Are you in danger? Is your daughter at risk?" Sarah stepped forward, her voice shaking at first but growing stronger. "No, I'm not in danger. My daughter is safe and happy. These people showed up when the rest of the world called me names and told me I was worthless. They didn't have to do that. They chose to. And instead of celebrating kindness, people tried to destroy it." She looked directly into the camera, her eyes wet but fierce. "To everyone who called CPS, who reported us to police, who made up stories about why these people were here, you almost took away the one good thing that's happened to us in months. You almost made me too afraid to accept help. Is that the world you want to live in? Where people are punished for compassion?" Emma tugged on her mother's shirt. "Mommy, can I say something?" Sarah lifted her up. Emma looked at the camera with those big blue eyes. "The bikers are nice. They gave me a bicycle and a teddy bear. They made my mommy smile. Why are people being mean about that?" The simplicity of a child's truth cut through all the noise. The Facebook Live comments started shifting in real time. I was wrong. I shared those negative posts. I'm sorry. This is what community should look like. Showing up for each other, I judged too quickly. Thank you for setting the record straight. These men have more integrity than most people I know. But not everyone was convinced. Some comments remained skeptical, cruel, insistent that there had to be an ulterior motive. Bear addressed those directly. To those of you who still think this is fake or that we want something in return, I can't change your mind. You've decided who we are based on how we look. But I'll tell you this. We're going to keep helping Sarah's family. We're going to be there when she starts her new job Monday. We're going to make sure Emma gets to and from school safely. We're going to fix that car and teach Sarah how to maintain it. And we're going to do it whether you approve or not. Because doing the right thing isn't about getting likes or praise. It's about showing up. He ended the live stream. The final viewer count was over 50,000 people. The video would be shared thousands more times in the coming hours, sparking debates across social media about judgment, appearance, and what real kindness looked like. Sarah's phone immediately started buzzing with notifications. The GoFundMe had jumped to $15,000. Messages poured in from people offering support, job opportunities, furniture, clothes for Emma. The tide was turning, but more importantly, something had shifted inside Sarah herself. For years, she had accepted that she was alone in this fight. That asking for help was weakness. That showing vulnerability would only invite more pain. But these 30 strangers had proven her wrong. They had seen her at her lowest, and instead of walking away, they had walked toward her. Over the next 3 days, the transformation began in earnest. On Monday morning, Bear and Raven showed up at 7 to follow Sarah to Snake's garage. Her Honda Civic was making a grinding noise that Sarah had been praying wouldn't turn into something catastrophic. Snake popped the hood and within minutes identified the problem. "Brake pads are shot," he announced. "Rotors are warped too." "You've been driving on borrowed time, how much?" Sarah asked, already doing the math in her head that she couldn't afford. Snake grinned. "For you, free, but you're gonna help me fix it. That way you learn." For the next 2 hours, Snake taught Sarah how to change brake pads and resurface rotors. His hands guided hers, patient and thorough. "This here is the caliper. You remember where that bolt goes? Good. Now torque it down like I showed you." Sarah's hands were covered in grease. Her back ached from leaning over the engine, but she felt powerful, competent. She was learning a skill that would save her thousands over her lifetime. Meanwhile, Wrench took Emma to Diesel's sister's house to get her enrolled in the new daycare. The home was warm and colorful, filled with toys and other children's laughter. Emma was shy at first, hiding behind Wrench's leg, but within 10 minutes she was playing with blocks alongside 2 other girls her age. "Your mama's gonna pick you up at 4, Wrench told her, crouching down. "You're gonna be safe here. Miss Patricia is real nice." Emma hugged him suddenly, fiercely. "Thank you for my bike." Wrench's eyes got misty. He cleared his throat roughly. "You're welcome, kiddo. You ride that thing every day, you hear me?" That afternoon, Sarah started her first shift at Raven's bar. The place was called the Iron Horse, a biker bar that was rougher around the edges than anywhere Sarah had worked before. But Raven ran a tight ship. No fights, no harassment. Everyone paid their tab or they didn't come back. Sarah learned the menu, memorized drink orders, navigated the lunch rush with Raven coaching her through it. The customers were mostly bikers and blue-collar workers. They tipped well and treated her with respect. By the end of her shift, Sarah had made $73 in tips, more than she usually made in 2 days at the diner. "You did good today," Raven said as they closed up. "Real good. You're a natural with people." Sarah smiled, exhausted but genuinely happy. "Thank you. For all of this. The job, the patience, everything." Raven squeezed her shoulder. "We take care of our own, and like it or not, you're one of us now." Over the following weeks, Sarah's life began to stabilize in ways she hadn't experienced in years. She worked 5 days a week at the Iron Horse, her tips consistently good. Emma thrived at the new daycare, making friends and coming home with artwork and stories. The car ran smoothly thanks to Snake's repairs and Sarah's newfound knowledge of basic maintenance. But the biggest change was internal. Sarah started carrying herself differently. The constant anxiety that had lived in her chest for years began to ease. She slept better. She smiled more. Emma noticed asking one night at dinner, "Mommy, why are you so happy now?" "Because we're going to be okay, baby," Sarah answered. "We really are." The internet attention eventually faded, as internet attention always does. The videos were replaced by new viral moments. But the impact remained. The GoFundMe closed at $21,000, which Sarah put into a savings account for the first time in her life. She paid 3 months of rent in advance. She bought Emma new clothes that actually fit. She started paying down the medical debt that had been crushing her since Emma's birth. And every Sunday, the Iron Brotherhood showed up at her apartment for what became a weekly tradition. They would grill out in the parking lot, teaching Emma how to ride her bike without training wheels, sharing meals and stories. The neighbors who had once filmed with suspicion now joined in, bringing side dishes and lawn chairs. Mrs. Chen made dumplings. The teenage boys asked Snake if he would teach them about engines too. That parking lot in that rundown complex where hope had felt impossible became a community. All because 30 people on motorcycles had decided that kindness mattered more than appearance. 3 months after that first morning, Sarah stood in her apartment looking at a letter. Her hands shook as she read it. Bear, who had stopped by to drop off some leftover ribs from the cookout, noticed her expression. "What's wrong?" Sarah looked up, tears streaming down her face. But this time they were different tears. "It's from the property management company. They're selling the complex. New owners are raising rent by $800 a month. We have 60 days. Just when everything had started to feel stable, the ground was shifting again. Sarah felt the old panic rising, the familiar sense that she would never get ahead, that every step forward would be met with 2 steps back. Bear read the letter, his jaw tightening. Then he pulled out his phone. "Let me make some calls." Within an hour, Bear's living room was filled with Iron Brotherhood members, all studying the letter and discussing options. Sarah sat on the couch, Emma asleep against her shoulder, listening to these people strategize on her behalf like she was family. 800 more a month. That's nearly 10 grand a year, Diesel said, running calculations on his phone. Even with the GoFundMe money and her current income, that's not sustainable long term. Snake leaned back in his chair. Could she move somewhere cheaper? Raven shook her head. Cheaper neighborhoods mean worse schools for Emma. Longer commute to work. In most places that cheap, you're looking at safety issues. Sarah's place isn't fancy, but it's in a decent area. Old man Jim spoke up, his weathered face thoughtful. What if we bought it? The room went silent. Everyone turned to look at him. What do you mean, bought it? Bear asked. The complex. Old man Jim stood up, warming to his idea. Property management company wants to sell, right? So we buy it, the club. We pool resources. Maybe bring in some outside investors who believe in what we're doing. We buy the building and keep the rent affordable for Sarah and everyone else living there. Diesel's eyes lit up. That's actually not crazy. I could look at the financials. If the property is being sold, there's usually a reason. Maybe it needs work, but the bones are good. We've got Snake for plumbing and electrical, Wrench for general repairs. We could sweat equity it. But the asking price, Raven interjected. Do we even know what they want for a 12-unit complex? Bear grabbed his laptop. Let's find out. Over the next 2 hours, they researched. The property management company was indeed selling. The complex was listed at $450,000. It needed updates, significant ones which explained why they were offloading it. But the location was solid, the structure sound, and the rental market in Bakersfield could support it if managed properly. $450 is steep, Diesel admitted. But if we can get 20 members to put in $10,000 each, that's 200 grand. We get a loan for the rest. With 12 units bringing in average rent of $1,200 a month, that's over 14 grand monthly income. Minus mortgage, taxes, insurance, and a maintenance fund, we could break even and still keep rents affordable. Bear looked around the room. This is a big ask, 10 grand per member. That's real money. Wrench didn't hesitate. I'm in. I've got savings, me too, Raven said. This is bigger than just helping Sarah now. This is about creating affordable housing in a city where it's disappearing. That matters. One by one, hands went up. 23 members committed on the spot. The others needed time to check their finances but expressed interest. The energy in the room was electric. Sarah, who had been quietly listening while Emma slept, finally spoke. I can't believe you're doing this. This is too much. Bear turned to her. Sarah, this stopped being just about you weeks ago. You showed us something. You reminded us why we formed this brotherhood in the first place. To take care of people. To build something meaningful. Yeah, we ride bikes and look tough and society judges us. But this, buying property to keep families housed, this is legacy work. Over the next 30 days, the plan came together with surprising speed. Diesel took point on the financial structure, creating an LLC with the club members as investors. They made an offer of $425,000, citing the needed repairs. The property management company countered at $440. They settled at $435. Snake and his crew spent 2 weeks doing a deep inspection of every unit, creating a repair priority list. Roof needed patching in 2 places. 3 units had plumbing issues. The electrical panel was outdated but functional. The parking lot needed resurfacing. All manageable problems. But they needed more capital than the members could provide alone. That's when the story took another turn. A local news station had picked up on the social media story about the Hells Angels helping Sarah. A reporter named Marcus Chen reached out, asking to do a feature piece. Bear was hesitant at first, wary of more media attention, but Raven convinced him. This could help other people, she argued. Other struggling families who need to know it's okay to ask for help. The segment aired on a Thursday evening. It was a beautifully shot piece that showed the club members working on the apartment complex, interviewed Sarah about her journey from desperation to stability, and featured Emma riding her bike while club members cheered her on. Marcus Chen didn't sensationalize it. He told it straight. a community coming together in an unconventional way. The response was immediate and overwhelming. By Friday morning, the news station had received dozens of calls from people wanting to invest in the apartment complex project. A local credit union offered a favorable loan rate specifically because of the community-focused mission. A construction company donated materials. A law firm offered to handle the closing paperwork pro bono. Within 2 weeks, they had more than enough funding. The excess money went into an emergency fund for major repairs and a scholarship program for children in the complex, Emma being the first recipient. The closing happened on an overcast Tuesday morning in November. Bear, Diesel, and 3 other club members sat in a lawyer's office, signing papers that made them landlords. It felt surreal. They were bikers, mechanics, bar owners, accountants living double lives, and now they were property investors running an affordable housing project. When they drove back to the complex with the keys, Sarah was waiting outside with Emma and several neighbors who had heard what was happening. As Bear stepped off his motorcycle, Sarah ran to him and hugged him hard. He stiffened for a moment, surprised, then hugged her back. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for seeing me when I was invisible." "You were never invisible," Bear said gruffly. "You just needed people to look." That weekend, they threw a block party to celebrate. The parking lot was transformed with string lights, folding tables loaded with food, a DJ playing music that ranged from country to hip-hop. All 12 families from the complex attended, along with club members and community supporters who had followed the story. Raven announced the new rental terms. Rent would remain at current rates for existing tenants, with any increases capped at 3% annually, just enough to cover inflation. Any family experiencing financial hardship could apply for temporary rent reduction through a fund the club had established. No one would be evicted for falling behind without first being offered resources and support. Mrs. Chen, the elderly woman from upstairs, stood up with tears in her eyes. "I have lived in this building for 15 years. I watched it deteriorate as landlords cared only about profit. I never thought I would see the day when people cared about keeping families together. You have given us more than housing. You have given us hope." The crowd erupted in applause. Emma, who had been dancing with other children, ran to Sarah and Bear. "Can we stay forever now, Mommy?" Sarah picked her up, looking at Bear. "Can we?" "Long as you want," Bear said. "This is home." As the party continued into the evening, Sarah found a quiet moment on the stairs leading to her apartment. She pulled out her phone and opened Facebook. For the first time in months, she felt brave enough to post publicly. 4 months ago, I sat on my kitchen floor and said I couldn't take it anymore. I was broken, scared, and alone. I posted my pain online and the world split in two. Some people attacked me. But others showed up. 30 people on motorcycles changed my life by choosing kindness over judgment. They gave me more than money or jobs or fixed cars. They gave me back my dignity. They reminded me that I deserve to take up space in this world, that my daughter deserves to dream big. Today, I'm not on my kitchen floor anymore. I'm standing, and I'm not alone. To everyone who supported us, invested in us, believed in us, thank you. And to anyone out there sitting on their kitchen floor right now, hear me. It gets better. Help exists. Community exists. Don't give up. She hit post and set the phone down. Within minutes, comments flooded in. Hundreds of them, thousands. But this time they were different. Your story gave me courage to ask for help. I was going to give up. Your post saved me. This is what humanity should look like. You deserve every bit of happiness coming your way. Bear sat down beside her on the stairs, 2 bottles of beer in hand. He offered her one. She took it, clinking her bottle against his. To new beginnings, he said. To people who show up, Sarah replied. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the party below. Emma was teaching Wrench how to do a cartwheel, both of them laughing as he failed spectacularly. Snake was arm wrestling Old Man Jim while a crowd cheered. Raven was deep in conversation with Mrs. Chen about starting a community garden in the empty lot next door. This was what transformation looked like. Not a single dramatic moment, but a series of small choices made by people who decided that kindness mattered. It was messy and imperfect and beautiful. Bear's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and smiled. The GoFundMe administrator had sent a message. Another mother in Arizona had posted something similar to Sarah's original message. She was asking if the Iron Brotherhood knew of any chapters near Phoenix who might be willing to help. Bear showed Sarah the message. Looks like we started something bigger than we realized. Sarah smiled. So what are you going to do? Bear stood up, stretching. I'm going to make some calls, see if my brothers in Phoenix want to take a ride. Because that's what they did now. They showed up. They helped. They built community in parking lots and dive bars and places society had forgotten about. They proved that you didn't need to look a certain way or have a certain background to make a difference. You just needed to care enough to try. 2 years later, the morning sun broke over Bakersfield in shades of pink and gold, painting the sky like a promise kept. Sarah stood on the freshly renovated balcony of her apartment, coffee in hand, watching Emma practice riding her bike in the parking lot below. The training wheels had been gone for over a year now, and her daughter rode with the confidence of someone who had never known what it felt like to doubt her place in the world. The apartment complex looked nothing like it had 2 years ago. The peeling paint had been replaced with warm desert colors. The cracked parking lot was smooth asphalt with painted lines and a basketball hoop at one end. Flower boxes hung from every balcony, a project Mrs. Chen had spearheaded with surprising ferocity. The community garden that Raven had suggested now flourished in the adjacent lot, providing fresh vegetables for all the residents. But the biggest transformation wasn't visible in the buildings or the landscaping. It was in the people. Sarah heard footsteps on the stairs and turned to see Bear approaching, looking remarkably similar to how he had that first morning, except for a few more gray hairs in his beard. He was carrying a folder and wearing what Sarah had come to recognize as his business face. "Morning," she called out. "Coffee's fresh inside." Bear accepted the invitation, stepping into Sarah's apartment. The space had changed, too. New furniture, not expensive but comfortable. Emma's artwork covered the refrigerator. Photos on the walls showed birthday parties, holiday gatherings, and that first block party 2 years ago that had started everything. Bear sat at the kitchen table and opened the folder. "Got the quarterly financial report from Diesel. Thought you'd want to see it since you're on the board now." Sarah still felt a small thrill when she heard that. 6 months ago, the Iron Brotherhood had voted to add 3 resident representatives to the apartment complex's board of directors. Sarah had been elected by her neighbors, along with Mrs. Chen and a single father named David, who lived in Unit 8 with his 2 sons. She sat across from Bear and reviewed the numbers. The complex was not only breaking even, but generating a small profit that went directly back into improvements and the emergency fund. Every unit was occupied. A waiting list had formed of families wanting to move in once space became available. "This is incredible," Sarah said, shaking her head. 2 years ago I was about to be evicted. Now I'm helping run the place." Bear smiled, the expression softening his weathered features. "You earned it. You know the community. You understand what these families need. That matters more than any business degree." Sarah set the folder down. "I got some news yesterday. The community college accepted me. I start in the fall." Bear's eyebrows rose. "Yeah, what are you studying?" "Social work." Sarah's voice was steady, certain. "I want to help other families the way you all helped me. But I want to do it officially, with credentials and resources. I want to be the person who shows up before things get desperate." Bear reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "Katie would have been about your age now. I think she would have done something like that too. Something that mattered." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the kind that only comes from deep friendship. Then Emma burst through the door, sweaty and glowing from her bike ride. Mom, guess what? Wrench said if I can ride from here to the end of the block without stopping, he'll teach me how to change a tire." Sarah laughed. "That's a good deal. But first, breakfast. Go wash your hands." As Emma ran to the bathroom, Bear stood to leave. "You coming to the barbecue Sunday?" "We're celebrating the Phoenix chapter's new housing project. They just closed on their second property." "Wouldn't miss it," Sarah said. After Bear left, Sarah got Emma ready for school. The morning routine had become something she actually enjoyed rather than a frantic race against time. Emma attended the same elementary school, but now participated in after-school programs Sarah could afford. She was taking art classes and had joined the soccer team. She had friends who came over for playdates. She was thriving in ways that made Sarah's heart hurt with gratitude. At 9 o'clock, Sarah drove to the Iron Horse for her shift. But she wasn't going to work the floor anymore. 8 months ago, Raven had promoted her to assistant manager. Sarah now handled scheduling, inventory, and bookkeeping. The pay was better and the hours were more consistent. allowing her to plan her life instead of constantly reacting to emergencies. As she pulled into the parking lot, her Honda Civic running smoothly thanks to Snake's continued mentorship, Sarah saw a young woman sitting on the curb outside the bar. She looked like Sarah had 2 years ago, exhausted, scared, holding herself like she might shatter. A toddler sat beside her playing with a toy truck. Sarah parked and approached slowly, non-threateningly. "Hi there. We don't open until 11, but you're welcome to wait inside where it's cooler. I'm Sarah." The woman looked up with red-rimmed eyes. "I'm Jessica. I saw the news story about this place. About what happened to you. I didn't know where else to go." Sarah sat down on the curb beside her. "Tell me what's happening." The story spilled out. Jessica had left an abusive relationship 3 weeks ago with her son. She had been staying with a friend, but that arrangement had fallen through. She had $50 to her name, no job, and her car had broken down that morning 2 blocks away. She was out of options and out of hope. Sarah listened without interrupting, recognizing every beat of the story because she had lived it. When Jessica finished, wiping her tears roughly, Sarah pulled out her phone. "I'm going to make some calls, okay? We're going to figure this out." Within an hour, the network Sarah had become part of had mobilized. Raven offered Jessica a trial shift to see if the job was a good fit. Diesel's sister had an opening at the daycare for Jessica's son. Snake was already towing Jessica's car to his garage to diagnose the problem. And there was a unit coming available at the apartment complex next month. Until then, Mrs. Chen had a spare bedroom she was willing to rent at a drastically reduced rate. Jessica stared at Sarah in disbelief as each piece fell into place. "Why are you doing this?" "You don't even know me," Sarah smiled. 2 years ago, 30 people on motorcycles showed up at my house when I posted that I couldn't take it anymore. They changed my life. Not just with money or jobs, but by showing me that community still exists, that people still care. Now it's my turn to show up for someone else." Jessica started crying again, but this time the tears were different: relief, hope, the possibility that maybe, just maybe, things could get better. That Sunday, the barbecue at the apartment complex was bigger than ever. Over 100 people attended, including members from the Phoenix chapter who had driven 5 hours to celebrate their success. They had just purchased their second apartment complex, creating affordable housing for 30 more families. Chapters in 3 other states were now exploring similar projects. What had started as 30 bikers helping one struggling mother had evolved into a movement. The Iron Brotherhood had launched a nonprofit called Home and Hope, dedicated to purchasing and maintaining affordable housing in communities where gentrification was displacing families. They partnered with social workers, community organizations, and local businesses to provide not just housing but comprehensive support. As the party reached its peak, Bear climbed onto a picnic table and called for attention. The crowd quieted, turning toward him. 2 years ago, a woman named Sarah had the courage to admit she was struggling. The internet tried to tear her down for it. But instead of hiding, instead of giving up, she let us help her. And in helping her, she helped us remember who we wanted to be. He gestured to Sarah, who stood with Emma and Jessica and her son. "These 4 people right here represent what this community is about." Sarah went from sitting on her kitchen floor in despair to getting her degree and helping others. Emma went from a scared kid who didn't have enough to a confident young lady who rides her bike like she owns the world. And Jessica, who arrived at the Iron Horse this week with nowhere to turn, is starting a new job tomorrow and has a safe place for her son. The crowd applauded, but Bear held up his hand. He wasn't finished. "This isn't just about us anymore. Home and Hope has housed 78 families across 4 states. We've created jobs, prevented evictions, and kept kids in their schools. But more than that, we've proven that ordinary people can make extraordinary change when they decide to show up for each other." Bear's voice grew emotional. "I lost my daughter 23 years ago because I wasn't there when it mattered. I can't change that. But I can be here now. We all can. And that's what I'm asking from everyone watching this story. Everyone who's been following this journey. Show up, in whatever way you can. Volunteer at a food bank. Donate to affordable housing initiatives. Check on your neighbors. Be the person who sees someone sitting on their kitchen floor and decides to help instead of judge." Sarah stepped forward, taking the microphone Bear offered. "When I posted that, I couldn't take it anymore. I never imagined it would lead to this, to a community, a purpose, a life I'm proud of. I'm not special. I was just desperate enough to be honest. And that honesty changed everything. She looked at Emma, who waved enthusiastically. My daughter will grow up knowing that when times get hard, you don't have to face them alone. That asking for help isn't weakness, it's wisdom. That people who look different or live different can still show up with open hearts. That's the legacy of what happened here. Sarah turned to the camera that Marcus Chen had set up to document the event. If you've watched this story from the beginning, if you've followed our journey from that first morning to today, thank you. Your support, your shares, your donations, they all mattered. They helped us build something bigger than any of us imagined. She paused, her voice thick with emotion. If you believe in this work, if you want to see more families get the help they deserve, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment with your own story, and subscribe to this channel. We're going to keep sharing these journeys. Keep highlighting the people and communities making a difference. Your engagement helps us reach more people who need to know they're not alone. Emma ran up and hugged Sarah's leg. And tell us your ideas. We want to know what problems you see in your community and how we can help. The crowd laughed and cheered. Bear wrapped his arm around Sarah's shoulders in a fatherly gesture. We started with 30 people on motorcycles. Now we're 100 strong. Next year, let's be thousands. Let's show the world what real community looks like. As the sun set over Bakersfield, casting long shadows across the transformed apartment complex, Sarah stood with her daughter and her found family. The Hells Angels who had shown up when the world tried to tear her down, the neighbors who had become friends, the strangers who had become supporters. She thought about that morning 2 years ago when she had sat on her kitchen floor, certain that nothing would ever get better. She had been so wrong. Not because life had become easy, but because she had learned she didn't have to face it alone. Emma tugged on her hand. Mom, can I have cake now? Sarah laughed. Yes, baby, you can have cake. And as they walked toward the dessert table, surrounded by love and laughter and the beautiful chaos of community, Sarah realized something profound. She wasn't just surviving anymore, she was living, and that made all the difference.